This is the Scary Movie Clubcast.
Live from Rural Retreat Lake in Wytheville, Virginia, it's Scary Movie Clubcast. This is Mackenzie,
Megan,
Amanda,
and Nadine. And tonight we have a special guest on the podcast. It is a fellow Richmond comic, super funny guy, and our resident alien expert, Kale Moore.
Hello.
and tonight we watched Friday the 13th. I give it 3 out of 5 machetes.
Megan.
I give it 3.5 machetes.
I'm gonna go 4 out of 5 machetes.
Yeah, you guys are all crazy. 1 machete, and I'm being generous.
The first one is so good, though.
What a dirty, bold-faced lie. It has one good scare. You know what? You have vaguely convinced me. I'll go to 1.5 because I really do like that one scare.
But then there's also like the twist that you never see coming.
Again, I'm being so generous already at my 1.5.
Oh my gosh.
I think I would go with 3.5 machetes. Because it did establish a lot of classic horror tropes.
That's true.
So tonight we're in Wytheville, Virginia, and our special guest Kale is going to tell us exactly what makes Wytheville so spooky.
Yeah, so I'm joining today to discuss probably the most significant paranormal event to happen in Wytheville, which was the Wytheville UFO flap.
Flap.
Flap, yes.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So in the UFO community and in the paranormal community in general, a flap is when a lot of different events happen in the same location. So the Wytheville flap was not actually the first UFO flap in in Virginia. So in December 21st, 1964, Horace Burns, a gunsmith, was driving from Staunton to
What a name.
Waynesboro.
Stanton.
Stanton.
He's a Midwesterner.
Yeah.
No,
Not
no.
from around here.
Not from these parts.
Norfolk.
No, not from these.
Wytheville, Norfolk, Stanton. There's so many weird town names here. So anyway, he was
Okay,
driving
Kale
from
is
Stanton.
from Gothenburg.
Okay.
What?
It-
I kid you not.
at least it's phonetic.
Oh, boy.
So he was driving from Stanton to Waynesboro when he saw what he claimed to be a beehive-shaped craft, roughly 80 to 90 feet tall and 125 feet in diameter. It flew over his car and touched down in a nearby field for around 90 seconds. And he also claimed that the glowing blue object caused his car to stall in the middle of the road when it passed over. After this sighting became public, others in the Stanton community began reporting sightings of little green men prowling the forest.
They always come out of the woodwork.
Yep. And it got to the point where there were actually armed posses that would
Stop
gather
What?
to try and hunt the alien down.
No.
Why are they trying to harm
It's like
the
they were,
alien?
We're going snipe
Afraid-
hunting.
I was
The
going to say
alien.
snipe hunting!
Yeah.
You
Those
get
were the
me.
snipes.
No, yeah, I mean, hunting fake things is a lot of fun.
I just like the idea of them these aliens being on the prowl. It makes me picture them just like walking up to the random ladies in the community being like, hey baby, what's your sign?
Leaning against lampposts.
Yes.
Cigarette.
Like, how you
Yep.
doing?
So eventually, before things got too dangerous, a man from Stanton came forward and claimed that he was the one responsible for the alien sightings, saying that he had dressed up in coveralls and a hat. That's all the description I got was coveralls and a hat. I don't know how that made him look like an alien.
Little green man? I don't understand. He paint himself green?
Did not say. But yeah, so
He's
apparently...
short in stature.
I know, that's what I was just thinking. I was like, he must have been short then if a small
Well, that's the
green
thing,
man.
is the book very specifically says he was like 5'10",
Oh.
and like 200 some pounds. So he was not
Not a
necessarily
little.
small. So yeah, I don't know how exactly he was supposed to look like an alien when he was in coveralls and like the size of an average man. But
Yes, look like just a regular old person living their life.
And it's like a farm type town, so I imagine most people are in coveralls.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, not
And a hat.
most, but you know.
A good bit.
despite this guy doing a terrible job of dressing up like an alien, that was enough to end the controversy for a little bit. But then sightings began to resume sporadically throughout the 1960s. and they culminated in 1967 when a man spotted what he called a storage tank on legs floating by the side of the road. He flashed his brights at it, only for it to immediately explode in a burst of white light.
Here's what I'm confused about. How is it a storage tank on legs that is floating? How are you on legs and floating at the same time?
Is it just the landing gears
That's
down?
what I'm guessing. It was supposed to be like the landing gear. So it exploded in a burst of white light and disappeared, leaving nothing but a scorch mark on the road above where it hovered.
Whoa.
At this point, Project Blue Book took interest. Project Blue Book was the code name for a United States Air Force project that set out to study UFO sightings across the U.S. to see if they were a credible threat to national security. However, according to most UFO enthusiasts, including me, they will say that Blue Book more or less set out to discredit sightings wherever possible instead of actually giving them a fair shake. An investigation of this incident led them to conclude that the sighting was no more than a ball lightning contacting a high-tension power line.
Ball
Interesting. I'd love to see it.
No, I've never witnessed a
That's
ball of
that's the
lightning.
thing, is no one has ever seems to have seen ball lightning, but
This guy apparently.
yeah.
Truly.
So this is a classic debunker's theory. The investigation was headed by a man called J. Allen Hynek. He was the lead scientist for Project Blue Book, and he is responsible for all of the classic like UFO excuses, like, oh, it was swamp gas, it was Venus. Like, he's the guy who came up with all that stuff. But it is actually interesting because we'll touch on this later on, but J. Allen Hynek actually switched teams eventually.
So Hynek's like a real Debbie Downer.
Yeah, he was a real wet blanket for a while, and then he joined the good guys.
The good guys.
So yeah, Hynek's explanation was that it was ball lightning hitting a high-tension power line, and this was apparently good enough for the man who actually witnessed it, because he stated it was the most sensible thing I've ever heard.
Ever.
Reminds me of Friends when Joey's like, I don't know, you see a thing, you hear a word, I thought that's what it was.
Yeah, so I'm really interested in that interaction because it almost seems like he just went with whatever the smart guy said. Because at first, when he was on his own, he was like, it looks like a storage tank on legs. And then Hynek came along and said, oh, no, it was ball lightning. And he was like, that makes sense. So,
Changed his tune.
yeah.
Probably bought off.
What do scientists think causes ball lightning? Because if no one's seen it, it's like a hypothesis pretty much, right?
Well, I mean, it happens, but it's very, very, very rare.
Why does it happen?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
Why are you not a lightning scientist?
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Why did you not learn lightning science for this one episode of the
Yes.
podcast?
I know.
Truly.
How could you not have anticipated this question?
So
Lightning
unprepared.
scientist.
You'll never be invited back.
Lightning scientist does sound fun, though.
Yeah.
They could have one of those big glass balls that you put your hands on
Do you
in
think
my office.
lightning scientist is like the proper name?
Obviously.
Also,
What else
can-
would it be called?
Can I just say that I think that ball lightning sounds like a medical slang term for when a guy gets kicked in the nuts.
No.
So this was the end of UFO sightings in Virginia for a while, at least until October 7th, 1987.
Spooky season.
So that's when our protagonist comes in.
Oh.
Danny Gordon was the news director at the WYVE radio station in Wytheville for 3 years at that point. And one morning, he had called up Wythe County Sheriff Wayne Pike to get information for the local beat. They had wrapped up discussing some vandalism that had occurred the previous night. Just before they were ready to hang up, Pike said that he had one more item that Gordon might be interested
Wait,
in.
Pike?
So,
We just watched Buffy. There's a character named Pike in it.
So Pike claimed that 5 of his police officers had spotted strange flying objects over Wytheville that night. The objects made no noise, and the officers were certain that what they had witnessed were not helicopters or airplanes. Danny turned this info into a 60-second human interest story, expecting it to be a one-off, laughable news story. But he did not imagine what happened next.
This is the way I like to treat police officers, is they come to you scared and you just laugh in their face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good strategy.
Works every time.
The day after the news story ran, a handful of Wythe County citizens called into the station, all relating personal stories of strange flying objects, and Sheriff Pike got in touch to share a story that one of his deputies had experienced the very next day. A family visiting from Ohio was coming through Wytheville when a round flying object swooped down on their car, forcing it off the road. They watched as it hovered silently over the road, lights blinking on a dull gray surface before it sped away into the night. Now, although he was intrigued by these stories, he was briefly stymied because neither Pike's officers nor the Ohio family actually wanted to come forward and share their stories. However, he received a tip that a state police dispatcher had a story of his own and was willing to talk. Brooks Coleman had been working night shift east of Wytheville, just off of I-81, when a local resident called in and told him to look outside.
How many clicks east?
It's been so long I've forgotten where that in-joke even came from.
I always make, Kale often will be like, which direction is that? Like, is it like east, west, north, south? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how many clicks away it is either. Like, I just make fun of him for that.
Yeah, this is the East Coast. We don't use cardinal directions.
Who cares?
How do you know it's the East Coast?
Hey.
Oh no,
True.
when the Capricorns turn on each other. Oh no.
So, the dispatcher by the name of Brooks Coleman had been working night shift when someone called in and told him to look outside. He stepped out to see two large green lights, one on top of the other, hanging in the air silently. The story was enough to convince Danny Gordon that the city of Wytheville was under siege, and he devised a way to get to the bottom of the
Under
situation.
siege.
Under siege.
By aliens?
Under the siege.
By aliens.
Okay.
Under the siege.
Some Mars attack.
Mars attack
so
section.
Oh, man. Quick, get the water guns.
So Danny realized that most people weren't going to want to reveal their identities if they were going to call in and share their UFO stories. So he decided to hold an anonymous call-in hour on October 17th. So that way people could call in, share their stories, and not have to be identified. On that day, a dozen different people called the station during that 1 hour.
Can I also just say I really love that this grown man is going by the name Danny.
Danny.
Yeah.
It's adorable. Very shining
He
ass.
still does. Yeah, he will be at the conference tomorrow. So
He's so old now.
yeah, the oldest, got to be the
Old
oldest
man
Danny.
Because when was this again? Like what, like year?
So this was
80s?
1987.
6, 7. That's close.
You were close.
I pay attention.
So
Ish.
the first story that Danny got from these dozen different callers was from a teenager who said that her and her boyfriend had been in his truck at Rural Retreat Lake.
That's where we are.
Yep.
Spooky.
Although I don't really find many of these stories to be credible because I feel like people would just call in just to hear their voice on the radio. To be like, I'm on the radio.
It's just weird, Manda, because you are known for like always believing every spooky spot we go to. So it's really weird that you would like want to discredit it. Because you're like known for as being the believer in the group.
Yeah.
That's me.
But
Also, though,
that
these
is-
people were anonymous, though, right?
Yeah, that is
so.
But I mean, you
another
can
benefit of
still
anonymous reporting.
Call your friend and be like, I'm on the radio. I told
radio.
this crazy story. Can you believe they believed it?
So did they put their voices, or did he just recant the stories like in his own voice? Or do you
Yeah,
not
he
know?
recorded them on air.
Oh, okay.
So they're calling it.
Yep. So this teenager and her boyfriend had been in his truck at Rural Retreat Lake, probably doing homework.
Obviously.
No.
What else would they be doing?
Yeah, anatomy homework, I'm sure.
So he saw something out of the window and told her to get out of the truck, and they looked up to see a large round craft hover over them with multicolored lights blinking along the bottom.
He told her to get out of the truck. I'm
I'm
sorry.
like, get out of the truck.
I am stuck on that because I would be like, you see something out there and you want me to leave the confines of the truck?
He was like, quick, get dressed.
He's like,
Yeah, really. Yeah. Put your shirt on.
practically
the
sounds like
aliens
he
are here.
shoved her out. He's like, get out.
He's like,
Through the
your
shirt.
real ride's here. Bye.
You're
So the next caller was from the rural retreat area as well, and described waking up in the middle of the night to see a round shape with blinking red and green lights moving over his backyard, with what appeared to be searchlights shining on the ground.
They're looking for cows.
Yeah,
yummy.
they're in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
10 more stories were shared, including one where a round craft was seen bobbing up and down over the Ivanhoe baseball diamond. It would touch the ground and then hover back up like a cormorant diving for fish. All
Is
of
that a
these
type of
sightings...
And I was like,
That
that
is
is
a type of
nothing
bird.
to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you just said it like as if we should have
know,
known.
like we just
I think that's a
know.
little wild.
Yeah, that is a very common bird on the East Coast, I would have you know.
What was the name of it again?
A brown cormorant.
Is there like some other thing that we would probably call it? Like,
I don't
is this
think
like
so.
the
More
specific breed of like a specific breed of
or-
sparrow or
I
something?
mean, they look like brown seagulls. They're the ones that stand on rocks with their wings stretched out.
So maybe you just should have said seagulls.
But they're not seagulls. They look like
But does it matter?
I ain't
I
never
know the
seen
word
a
seagull.
brown seagull in my life.
Sounds like a dirty lie is what you're telling us.
Sounds like
Redbird.
a,
Okay.
sounds like a
All
dirty
All right,
seagull.
the backseat's getting a little aggressive. Kale did all this research for us. He read an entire book last night. Let's all just let him have his bird.
Look.
So it would touch the ground and hover back up like an unspecified bird diving for fish.
Sounds right.
Better.
Like
better.
a bird diving for fish.
Yep. All of these sightings had three things in common. The craft was round, it was covered in blinking lights, some red, some green, and some white, and it was absolutely,
Christmas.
eerily silent.
Oh,
It was the nightmare
I
before Christmas.
don't like that.
So, at first, Danny's take on these sightings was that they were helicopters. But I don't know
The
if you've
silent
ever...
helicopter.
Exactly.
Helicopters are known for being so quiet.
Yeah. So anyone who has been anywhere within a couple miles of a helicopter knows how loud that they get. Now, the bobbing up and down is actually a pretty common feature in UFO sightings. One good example of this is the Gulf Breeze sightings, in which a family allegedly took several Polaroids of a UFO that stalked them for over a year.
What?
Ooh,
Yep.
that's personal.
What kind of like interactions did they have with it?
Well,
It just stalked
it
them
had
and
a blue
abducted
beam.
them?
It seemed to take a specific interest in the father, and it had a blue beam that could paralyze him.
Oh.
So he got
What?
caught
No.
a couple times, but
I'm
they
out.
never successfully abducted him.
No.
Why not? I mean, he's all
I know,
paralyzed.
he's already paralyzed.
Yeah.
Just
Were they
take
just
him.
like, ugh, he
Easy
weighs
for him to
too
take it.
much?
So heavy. Our beam
Well,
can't.
Yeah, so the very first sighting that he had, it tried to pick him up, and it got him about 4 feet off the ground before they gave up and then
Instead
left
of
again.
breaking the scale, it's like, you're breaking the beam.
You're breaking the beam.
Yikes.
So yeah, there was another incident where he was in his backyard and it shot the beam at him, and he managed to get half under the deck, so the beam hit his legs, and they went numb, and so he had to drag himself back into the house.
And his family are all like, yeah, this happened.
Yes.
And it's not
so,
just him being like, yeah, these things.
So
real.
he and his wife actually wrote a book together,
Interesting.
which I own. And the Polaroids are, I mean, there's
Blurry?
a decent chance that they're fake. They are very, very interesting. I have the book with the pictures in it, and they are very clear, but at the same time, might have been faked.
Okay.
Because it's alleged that when they moved out, the next family to move in found a model of the UFO that he supposedly took pictures of.
You wouldn't take your.
You couldn't destroy it, dude?
Wow.
Damn.
Beam me up, Scotty.
He's like, I already wrote the book and it's already sold, so we're done.
Yeah.
Lose some weight.
Now, whether or not this story is true, it does have a lot in common because of the bobbing. So, one thing they noted during the Gulf Breeze sightings was that this huge round craft would hover in the air, and it would bob and tilt like a cork floating in the water. And that was something that was in common with most of the Wytheville sightings as well.
Wait, now where did the Polaroid guy one happen?
That was in Gulf Breeze, Florida.
Okay.
It's up on the panhandle.
Okay.
So the really interesting part is that these craft were not always alone. One of the most compelling stories came from a family of 5. Just like with the Gulf Breeze sightings, they watched as it circled around Sand Mountain twice, bobbing and listing as it moved. It finally came to a stop where the family watched as some of the lights seemed to split off, moving away for a few minutes before merging back together. In another sighting, a woman saw a large egg-shaped craft flanked by 2 smaller shapes. The large one split off from the others, circling the area for a few minutes before reuniting with the others and disappearing below the horizon.
Sounds like these aliens are like drunk and joyriding to me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That is one theory that I've heard about the Gulf Breeze one, is that they failed to pick him up so many times because it was like the B team.
No.
Stop.
The kids.
A B might be too high.
Yeah, really. Sent in the C team.
D team.
Now, in another very interesting sighting, a family of 6 even reported a sighting where each of them saw the same craft, but they couldn't agree on the shape of it or even the color of lights that sprouted from its hull.
You know what's weird? I actually find that more believable than any of the others
Yeah.
because I feel like if all of us saw something, we would all describe it probably differently. A little different. Yeah.
Yep. So why would they all report something different? If you ask some UFO researchers, this is where it gets really weird. They claim that UFOs are not actually what we call nuts and bolts craft, but are in fact a psychic projection. These UFOs form a sort of psychic link with the observer from something in a different plane of existence. And I personally find that theory pretty wacky,
It's far-fetched.
but there is one very compelling example of this. So the Hudson Valley sightings in upstate New York was an incident where one craft was witnessed by literally dozens of different people. And several of these people, they described the craft as large and wedge-shaped, and they thought to themselves as they were watching it that they wished they could get a better look at it. And as that thought crossed their mind, they said that the craft turned to face them directly.
Ooh. That's what we
And
call
this-
a coincidence.
Yeah. But the weird part is this all happened at the same time. So how does a UFO turn to face several different people scattered at different points throughout the valley?
Oh.
Yeah.
It was almost as if it was somehow simultaneously interacting with everyone in the valley on that night.
That must be it. That's what it was.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, all of them described the craft as looking very similar. The only difference was that it turned to face them individually, all somehow at the same time. So the controversy with the Wytheville UFO sightings died down momentarily when a staff sergeant with the Tennessee Air National Guard made a statement to the press that they had been conducting refueling exercises. The news took this as gospel, and for a moment it looked as though Danny's investigation was for naught. But when Gordon called the Knoxville Air Base, he got Major Ed Harrell on the line, and the major immediately rebuked this notion, saying that refueling before 18,000 feet was not only not permitted, but not safe. Despite this clarification, some of the sightings appeared to be more terrestrial, but still mysterious in nature. One woman claimed to see a black helicopter shining a searchlight across the highway early one morning, and a group of farmers claimed to see cargo planes with no lights, no markings, and painted in dark camouflage buzzing their farms at 500 feet. So Danny was so intrigued by the reports from the locals that he determined to spot a UFO for himself, but his first attempt ended in disappointment. He took an invitation from a woman named Barbara Finney, who claimed to be a UFO expert, and the two of them, along with 2 reporters and Sheriff Pike, rode out to this very spot and stood in the darkness, hoping to spot something.
Sounds like a weird first date.
Yeah.
Like a double
Oh my
date.
gosh.
I mean, he was married, but...
Yeah, Sheriff Pike is the
Doesn't mean it couldn't be a
third
date.
wheel. So sure enough, he spotted something in the sky that appeared to dance with multicolored lights, but Barbara immediately burst his balloon, explaining that it was a shooting star.
Kind of like how we just saw that red dot in the sky, and I was like, probably a planet, and then it was Mars.
Yeah.
Man, it's like, do we all remember an hour ago when I was right?
Can we talk about it?
So his first attempt ended in disappointment, but one night he called a friend and former airline pilot named Roger Hall, and the two brought along a 35mm camera and a camcorder out on a drive down the roads around Rural Retreat. At 8:45, just as they were about to give up, they noticed a group of lights approaching them from the north. The two leaped from the car and readied both the camera and the camcorder. They watched as a massive dark shape passed over a nearby pasture. Gordon noted that the craft was roughly 600 to 700 feet long, dome-shaped,
What?
and with what appeared to be a cockpit at the front.
Holy cow.
Okay.
Even stranger, 3 large window panes appeared spaced around the perimeter of the craft, and all of them appeared lit from inside with a soft white light. Suddenly, a red spherical object jetted across the sky, and the craft and the orb entered a cloud. When the craft emerged, the sphere did not, and it slowly glided off into the night.
That's a really big UFO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets sketchy, because according to Gordon, both him and his friend were so transfixed by the sight that neither had thought to use the camcorder or the camera
Yeah.
that they had out and ready.
Boy, how convenient.
Yes.
So this is where things get really weird. Just before this alleged sighting, Danny took a call from a computer analyst in Norfolk, which leads us to one of the strangest figures in the story, Andrew Convery. Convery appeared the next day at the radio station. He had neatly trimmed dark hair and glasses, and was dressed in thick overalls and fur-lined boots.
Oh.
He explained that he had ridden from Norfolk to Wytheville, a journey of 300 miles.
Yo, I made that journey today, so...
Yeah, you really did that.
That is, I can tell you, and I didn't do it on horseback, so...
He made the 300-mile journey on a moped.
Stop it. No, he did not.
Yep,
In thick overalls and fur-lined boots.
in October.
No.
No.
He rode from Norfolk to Wytheville in October on
What
a
is this
moped.
guy's
On a
name
moped.
again?
It would have taken him like 2 days.
He should have ridden a UFO. It would
Yeah.
have been faster.
What was this guy's name again?
Andrew Convery.
Okay.
Maybe
Middle
he
name
hadn't
Dummy?
hit the gym so they couldn't lift him up.
That's right. That's right.
So Convery showed up at the station, introduced himself, had a brief chat, and then went to his hotel. Just after Convery left, Danny received an anonymous phone call from someone claiming to be from the CIA, saying that they were sending an agent to meet him.
Oh.
When Danny asked Convery point blank if he was a CIA agent, his reply was nothing but a smile.
Oh, he did not come from Norfolk to freaking Wytheville
Wytheville.
on a moped and is a CIA agent.
I agree.
Okay.
No.
He's the type of guy who would pose as one.
No.
It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
what an opportunity.
Yeah.
And that, yeah. I mean, when you look at a lot of the...
Amazing.
I'm sure you're going to love hearing that one back.
Oh, it's so great.
I want to make that my text tone for when you text me.
A snort of disbelief. I can't. I'm so stupid.
Oh, it's so good. I needed that. I felt like I was falling asleep. Not because your thing is boring, but I'm so tired right now. I need to clarify that.
I know, it's very, very interesting.
It is very interesting.
But so's Amanda's snorting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Peacock.
Yeah, you did bring up a good point. Who would pretend to be a CIA agent?
Yeah.
A
An
lunatic.
idiot. An
Yeah.
idiot.
Sad little
Our boy
guy.
Andy.
Yeah.
And more importantly, who could get a friend of theirs to pretend to also be a CIA agent to say that they were
The
sending
same
a
kind of
CIA
guy who
agent?
drives from Norfolk
moped.
to Wytheville on a moped.
Really, who's to say he didn't call himself?
I know, exactly.
Sounds like something
exactly.
he would do.
Yeah.
I know him. I know Andrew well.
I've met this guy.
So
How
it
funny
could
would it
be.
have been if he had said the name and then you did know them because it was
Right.
someone
Oh,
else?
I
yeah.
know them well. No, yeah, we hang out all the time. Like, I know him. Yeah, don't worry.
It could be that Andrew Convery,
Yeah.
It could be that Convery was just a random UFO nerd posing as a CIA agent to try and get the inside scoop. Or he could be a man in black.
A real CIA.
Unlikely.
Oh.
I won't go too deep into the men in black, but they are a very common trope in UFO sightings, and they are much spookier than the movies make them out
They're
to
their
be.
own type
What?
of cryptid.
Yeah,
color-
exactly.
What color was the moped? Was it black?
Was it
Did
a black
not
moped?
go into details. Yeah,
Under his
it was a blacked
coveralls,
out moped.
was he wearing a suit?
Ooh.
Maybe that's why he was wearing coveralls to hide the suit.
I would love if he was in coveralls, but underneath was a suit, and then he was also wearing sunglasses.
Yeah, speaking of the Mothman, if you want a really good example of some very creepy Men in Black stories, read the Mothman Prophecies. So after Convery's arrival, Gordon and a few other friends once again spotted a large dome-shaped craft. This time, they were prepared and shot several pictures of a triangular bank of multicolored lights, which you can find on the internet. They
Sounds like
watched.
they had time to stage it. Just throwing that out there.
It's an interesting picture because it's not very clear, but it definitely looks like it's got the sort of the lens flare that comes from taking pictures of lights from very far away. So if it was staged, it was done in a pretty convincing manner.
Well, they had time to plan it.
I know. What else are they going to do in Wytheville?
Truly.
So again, they watched as a smaller craft appeared to attach itself to the object. Convery, still at his hotel, claimed to have seen the same craft from a different perspective.
Wait, so the same thing that they watched happen the first time and they didn't take pictures, that same exact thing just happened to happen again in front of them? Where it's like the mama
Convenient.
craft takes the baby craft?
The mom.
Well, actually, their first sighting, there was no baby craft.
No, I thought there was, because wasn't there the one thing that, like,
Oh, no,
it
you're right.
never reemerged? Yeah.
Nope, my bad.
Suck it,
I screwed
Capricorn.
up my own research.
The mama craft took the baby craft, okay?
Yeah, so they did not get the mama and the baby craft in the pictures. They just got the one triangular shaped lights. So Gordon, satisfied that he had finally had hard evidence of a UFO, called a press conference
Sure.
in the meeting room of the radio station where he, Convery, and the other witnesses gathered to share their story.
Wait, Convery
Why the
really
fake
inserted
CIA
himself so
CIA?
easy.
Really
Yeah.
did.
That's what makes this story really strange, is this random guy just shows up and he becomes like his second-hand man.
Yeah, Danny was like, I was looking for a new bestie.
Yeah.
Thank you for
You
driving up on
fit
that
the
moped.
bill.
So yeah, he, Convery, Pike, pretty much everyone involved in the UFO sightings up to this point was there to share their side of the story. When Danny opened the floor for questions, one reporter asked the mysterious Convery if they had evidence that an object had crashed in the Wythe County area. He replied yes, but when asked if he could provide details, he simply said no.
Well, okay.
But you couldn't even provide details?
This is another really interesting part because nowhere up to this point does Danny or anybody else talk about a craft crashing.
Yeah.
This is a detail that Convery just pulled out randomly.
That he's just making up on the spot.
Or he knows something that Danny doesn't.
No, he's making things up. Just like he's been doing the rest of his time here.
Probably his whole life.
Truly. Probably never told anyone the truth about anything.
It does seem like Convery either had all the details down or did actually know something that the rest of the people didn't, because later on in the press conference, he stated that the craft they had been seeing was certainly something new, but that all the old classics, including the double saucer, the single saucer, the long tubular craft, and the triangular craft had all been sighted there previously.
So are we saying that all these different quote-unquote crafts are the same like aliens? Are they different aliens? What's going on? Are they all just different species of aliens coming together at the same time? Are these just different models of spaceships that these aliens have? Like,
So there is a lot of debate about that. On one hand, the same alien species having multiple different types of UFO is not that far-fetched, because if you think about, like,
yeah.
our own Air Force, we have so many different types of planes. So that's not too
I mean,
far-fetched.
a lot of the planes are like essentially the same shape. I mean, except for maybe like helicopters being the most different.
Yeah, but that is mostly due to the fact that wings are pretty much a requirement.
Yeah.
If you have whatever these UFOs have that allow them to hover around, then it's not as important. But another theory is that there are actually multiple species of aliens that are sort of working together. Sort of like, a Star Trek, like, whatever that thing from Star Trek is called, I forgot.
The Federation?
Yeah, the Federation, so sort of like that.
My parents are Trekkies, okay? I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, you.
I get this stuff peripherally.
No, I know. I mean, I like Star Trek. I just think it was funny that it was you.
Yeah. So if you talk to a really deep UFO conspiracy theorist, usually they will
Which
say
we
that
are,
there
right?
are 7 to 12 alien species that are in contact with us.
So do you believe that?
Inconclusive. But there are people that talk about species like the
Greys.
the Greys, which is the classic little alien with black eyes and a big bulbous head. You've got Nordics, which basically just like look really pretty white people. You've got reptilians that kind of look like
They're running Congress.
Yep. They're running
Ayo. We got a little political humor here, you know what I'm saying?
So, yeah, according to who you ask, there's a bunch of different species that are visiting us all at the same time. And sometimes they even work together. There was an incident called the Coronado Group Abduction, where it was actually a UFO conference where a bunch of people who had prior abduction experiences all showed up to the same conference, and then that night they all got abducted by their respective alien species.
What?
I love that for them. They probably, over breakfast this morning, they were like, girl, guess what happened?
Like, oh my gosh,
Me
too.
I knew he'd come back.
I knew he would come back for me.
Yeah, so like it's kind of like tagging an animal. When someone gets abducted, sometimes they have a tendency to get abducted again for a
Catch
checkup.
and release, catch and release.
Yeah. So, like, for example, someone who had gotten abducted by the Nordics in his childhood, he got abducted by the Nordics. The Greys took someone that they had took already, and so on and so forth. So, they all got their own previous handlers, I guess. So, yeah, Convery made a point that he had knowledge that all these different types of craft had been over Wytheville previously, and when asked by reporters if these craft were all military, he ominously replied, "I hope so."
Oh
Wait,
my
who was
gosh.
it? Who
This
said
is
that?
Convery.
This is
Yeah,
Convery, the
the
weirdo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He doesn't know
CIA
anything
agent.
anyway.
I know. He's just making stuff up.
So by the end of October, Gordon has estimated that calls of UFO sightings had numbered over 1,000, not only from Wythe County, but from locations all around Virginia. But this was not the only attention Danny Gordon received after his little press conference. He received a call at home that simply stated, "Your phone is being tapped, you are being watched and followed. You had better stop talking about UFOs." Then the line went dead. A letter with no signature warned him that the sightings were part of a secret government operation and he needed to leave it alone.
Andrew needs to get a life.
He really
Okay.
does.
Leave
Yeah.
Danny alone.
Drive his little moped back to Norfolk.
This is his life.
Here is where it gets scary.
Alright.
The day after the press conference, Danny returned to his apartment to find that someone had broken in.
Andrew.
Hate to see it.
Andrew, come on.
His belongings had been rifled through, but nothing was missing. and the roll of film from his UFO sighting was safe inside his briefcase.
Oh, so
Oh, Andy.
just for kicks and gigs, breakthrough, break in.
Well, that's he was never sure, but that was his theory. Is after he mentioned the film, someone came looking for it.
Okay, but that's the kind of thing people do when they've, like, murdered someone and they're trying to make it look like an intruder. They rummage their house and don't take anything away.
So you're saying he rummaged through his own stuff?
Maybe. Maybe he had Andrew do it. He's like, don't actually take anything, bro, but, like, make it look like someone broke in.
We're getting deep.
So all of these experiences made Danny very paranoid, to the point where he even borrowed a .357 revolver to protect himself.
Uh-oh.
From Andrew?
Probably from Andrew. Despite these ominous incidents, Danny's UFO experiences did not stop there. He claimed to have seen the UFOs a further 27 times over the next 5 months.
And just to be clear, he was like going out hunting for these
Yeah,
experiences.
yeah.
It's not like these were just falling in his lap.
Yeah.
He was like packing up his kid and his wife and being like, let's go see. Let's go on the prowl in the woods.
His wife was down with this. She was like, yeah, let's go. I'm like, absolutely not.
No.
No.
And their daughter wasn't that old at this point.
Oh my
Like, I don't know
gosh.
how old she was, but like a kid.
Yeah.
You're like, we're staying here.
You're not
You
taking my
go.
kid through the woods.
No.
So yeah, for those 5 months between the press conference and March of 1988, he had himself a little dream team. It was him, Andrew Covenry,
No.
his pilot friend, Sheriff Pike, and a handful of other reporters that had stopped by to investigate. Then, in March of 1988, he was preparing to travel to Virginia Beach for the United Press International Awards. He was invited to speak to his peers about his UFO experiences during the convention. The Monday before the convention, the phone rang at home. When he picked up, the caller on the other end asked,
Is this Danny Gordon, the guy who's been on television and in the newspapers about UFOs?
"You got him." The caller identified himself as William Smith of Clifton Forge.
What I'm telling you, Danny, if you go down to Virginia Beach, you're pursuing something I have been, but you are new to it. I've been pursuing this thing for many, many years. I saw my son die of leukemia. He was just as healthy as can be. In fact, I told people I thought they would hit my son to get back at me. The thing is that anyone who investigates these things usually comes into a whole lot of problems. If anything should happen to you, if you would come back and some of your friends say, that doesn't seem to be the same old Danny Gordon we knew. He seems like he's different. They will try to hit you if they think it's practical, most likely by skin contact chemicals. If anything happens to you, you've been forewarned.
Ominous.
The conference went by without any mysterious incidents. And as a matter of fact, Danny even ran a background check on this William Smith guy and learned that he was a real person and he was living in Clifton Forge.
Okay, my question, though, is did Danny ride down to Virginia Beach on the back of Andrew's moped?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I bet he stayed with him when he got there. I mean, they're like besties now.
Yeah.
So, thankfully, he made it through the conference without being poisoned, but the flow of UFO sightings continued.
Okay, wait, but do you know the one weird thing about this conference? Is that, that same weekend at the beach, there was an outbreak of like salmonella or something. Like there was some
Stop.
weird outbreak of something, and he didn't get it, and so he got home and was fine. But he was like, "Dude, if I had gotten that, I for sure would have been like, it was real." Yeah, like because I mean, you get told something like that, and then you come home with this weird thing. Like,
Oh my goodness.
However,
oh, I'm sorry.
in July of 1988, Danny suffered what appeared to be a heart attack.
Aw,
Okay.
Danny.
For a second, I thought you looked at me so accusatorily that I thought that I had just taken your thing, and I was like, "Why'd you let me say it then?"
In the hospital, as he lay in bed, he determined that he would back off of UFO reporting.
How about he just back off the red meat, you know?
Hey, you know?
So Danny Gordon was still bombarded with sightings and stories, and still suffered jibes about little green men every time he went out in public, but he never again delivered a report about the strange craft that appeared over Virginia. The threatening calls and letters stopped, and the mysterious Andrew Convery disappeared into the ether.
Thank
Into
goodness.
the ether.
No.
But where is he now?
Right.
Telling somebody
right
else
behind
that he's in the CIA or the FBI or whatever tall tale he's thought up.
Despite receiving over 1,000 reports of UFOs over Virginia, none of the witnesses claimed to have seen the pilots of these bizarre craft except for one, which I will leave you with. William Huff of Roanoke was walking home from a movie late one night when a craft descended over the mountains and glided towards him. He realized he was alone on the street and ran to fetch his friend, who brushed it off as a helicopter. That appeared to be it, until years later, when a professor at the University of Wyoming convinced him to undergo hypnosis, and this was their conversation. Describe the occupants of the craft.
Well, there's 5 men. They're all the same height. They look pretty much alike. They have an all-knowing look on their faces. They're very handsome. They have hair. It's not long. It's just full. They have on tight-fitting uniforms, no helmets. We're inside of a large circular room.
Describe the interior.
It's a bright light. It doesn't hurt my eyes, and there's a centerpiece that looks like a control center.
Are you talking to these people?
Yes, we're talking, but we're not using our lips.
Can you see the outside of the spacecraft?
Yes, I have a feeling I would like to go with these people, wherever they're going. I don't feel like they're gods or anything. I just feel like they are intelligent people from another place in the universe that's far ahead of us in technology, and I want to learn.
And that is the story
Wow.
of the Wytheville UFO flap.
Interesting. So would that be you? If the aliens came, would you be like, take me with you, I want to learn?
Yeah. Now, if it gets revealed that aliens are 100% real, tomorrow I will be on the roof of my house with a sign.
Yeah.
You were like relatable.
Wait, so that last account, was that like hypnosis or like just an interview? Or...
Yep, this was regressive hypnosis.
Oh my gosh, I hate, no.
Why are you scared of what you've repressed, Amanda?
No, it's been like a lot of people have created false memories through regressive hypnosis. So, sounds like that's probably.
Sounds like someone's on their moped.
It does, actually. When you come to this lake,
Andrew.
you can hear the moped in the distance. So what about you guys? Would you guys go with aliens?
No,
I would not go with the aliens. I don't know if I want to see an alien. I think I would be too scared.
Yeah.
If I even saw a flying, like an actual UFO in real life, I would be too scared. But that's how I feel. Would anyone else want to go with the aliens?
Oh, probably not.
No.
Nadine?
I wouldn't want to leave my family.
Yeah.
Well, I think they have really
I
much
don't
better to offer, I would think.
I don't know if they've got, I think I've got what I need here on Earth, you know.
It's not like I go with a person just because they promised me better things. Sounds
I
like
would
they're trying
probably-
to kidnap me.
I would probably go with someone if they're like, you want to move to Finland? I've been trying to get to Finland for a while now.
Yep. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Scary Movie Clubcast, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. See you next movie night, and don't forget, there are 7 days till Halloween. 1 week! Bye!
Bye!
So, I'll give it 6 out of 10 machetes.
We do out of
Out of
5.
5? Oh, then I'll do... I'm so sorry. 3 out of 5 machetes.
I wish it was out of town. I'm sorry, say it one more time. I'm sorry, I talked right over your end. I didn't mean to.
Should I do the whole part of it again?
It's up to you.
Alright.
Project Bluebrook was...
Oh, no, say it again.
God, did you guys just see that ball lightning?
Oh, yep.
I see a UFO. Oh, it's gone.
I'm sure that's what it is for this.
Do you want me to just go ahead and do the outro, or do we want to do any more discussions?
Great, do the outro.
Megan's so tired.
Exhausted.